G'day guys, how's it going? Welcome back, of course, to the Time Bomb channel, and I hope all is good in your part of the world. Watch review of the Rotary Sport Ref GB05575/05. This is a very new release from the brand, and it has been kindly lent into the channel by the good people at First Class Watches. If you're interested in this watch, hit them up. Mention the Time Bomb channel, please, as they will do their best to help you out with price matching, and it's a great way to know that when they're lending out watches, people get in touch as a result. Rotary have released quite a few models this last month, I think just in time for some Christmas shopping, and I think this one fits the bill perfectly. It's well priced, it's well put together, and well, yeah, it's a little uninspired on the design cues. However, I think the price point, the brand, and that blue guilloche, as you can see here, and the steel, the brush steel on the top of this bezel and everything, make it a watch that I like a lot. Sadly, though, the rumor mill is rife with suggestions or indications that Rotary, the brand, have gotten themselves into some huge debts here in the UK, and they may not survive up into in 2025. I sincerely hope that those rumors are or don't become reality, because they're a brand that I've been into since I was a kid, and really like to see them, go on for many years. Let me just pause there and get rid of some of the plastics on here. All right, so there's our watch with most of the plastics removed. Key speckage then. So it's supposedly around 40 mils across, but it isn't, because as you can see, you've got that little swelling on the left there, and then the crown sticks out quite a bit, so it's pushing it out to close to the 42 mils across. North to south, it's a very manageable 47 mils. And even more manageable then, it's 11 mils deep. Curious choice of 22 mil lugs. Sorry, I'm getting a lot of focus there. 22 mil lugs, but I think what that does is it just allows the watch to sit much squatter on wrist, and then give you a much wider bracelet as well to hold it. And what that does also then is they've reflected that in that very amplified middle section on the bracelet. As you can see, sadly, it's a little bit of a fingerprint magnet, so I'll do my best to keep it as clean as possible for you during the video. But yeah, so brushed on the outside, super polish on the inside. These come with 100 meters worth of watery goodness, and yes, of course, it's a quartz. You do get a little bit of sapphire up top, and it's got some really nice weight to it on this unsized bracelet. It weighs in around 160 grams. If that's, of course, too much for you, I think you could easily lighten it up by throwing it on a leather. I think it would, with the steel and the blue, etc. I think some vintage leather strap would look brilliant on this. Over on the right hand side here, we have a signed push-pull crown, and our first position, he says he's gone past it already. Our first position is or was, I can't see through the camera, excuse me, let's try that one again. Yeah, first position then obviously is our quick set date, and the movement on it is, yeah, it's not too bad at all, not too much wiggle or anything like that, so yeah, that works pretty well. I also wanted to suggest, notice like you've got the two rings of knurling. I'm getting a lot of reflection here. Two rings of knurling there just on that crown as well. Nice little touch. And it sits as well quite fairly deeply, but not perhaps as deeply as you might imagine between those semi-crown guards. Normally when you've got crown guards that large, you would perhaps imagine that your crown was a little deeper set into it. I referenced the lug width in there, and also then notice that you've got a really positive drop down on the lugs, just about meets that bottom of the case. And as you can see then, let me just zoom back out a fraction, show you how that fits on wrist. My wrist is 7 1/4 inch, and I think, yeah, the specs on this thing are ideal. Yes, it's quite a wide open face dial, but again, it's paying, dare I say, a little bit of homage to a couple of other watches in that ilk. So yeah, those people with around a 6-inch wrist might want to look at some of their other options, as I say, because it's quite a proud big clear dial on this one. The come back in again. So the steel bracelet, I think, is pretty well made. I don't. These, I think pretty certain that these are solid links. They're not hollow, and it's quite well put together. Unfortunately, it does come with the butterflies at the bottom, and regulars to the channel will know that I'm not a huge fan of these, as it's very difficult to find the sweet spot. And as you can see, you've got virtually no micro adjust there. You've got a couple of very smaller sections, but I think it could be a little bit of a challenge to get it. You're either going to be wearing it a fraction tight or a little loose, depending on your preference. I mentioned the steel and the brushing earlier. I mean, I really think that the steel on the bezel is brilliant. The brushing is fantastic, and then of course you've got that polished edge around there, without my fingerprints on it. Perhaps I should have worn gloves for this video. But then again, brushed on the top of the case body, and then quite high, some good high polish on the sides. Again, one of the reasons why I like brushed everywhere is because it stops the watch from becoming fingerprint magnets. I think that the watch looks, super clean. It's a very easy wearer, and you could easily see this wearing, this is your office watch or your weekend watch just as well. I think though perhaps the downside to that design is that it's not very original. There's quite an element of Patek and Nautiluses and sort of things running through that. However, I don't think they're catering to the watch nerds out there with this release, and they're more focusing on the buyers looking for something clean, clear, sporty, and well priced. Let me just zoom in a fraction more so we can get a little bit more close with that dial. The seconds hand there, I think, it's a good length. It sort of does a pretty good job of hitting the markers, as most of the cases on this one do. As it's coming down the 12 to 6, it hits the markers very well, but going back up to the 6 to the 12, sometimes it struggles a little bit to maintain that accuracy. But again, I think most people who are buying this won't be those watch nerds who are obsessed with those kinds of details. The buttons, the button markers reflect, almost a mirror reflection of those, button hands. Again, pretty clear. The deep blue dial on this as well, I think, is fantastic. That guilloche pattern is good, and I like it because it's blue enough not to turn black, as is the case with many blue dials. That shade too dark, and then depending on the light, this one you've really got to tip it before. It even maintains, an element of blue there, which, if you're buying a blue dull watch, you kind of want it to be blue for as long as possible. One thing I noticed was on the advertising of the watches, the screws, the faux screws around the bezel, aligned in those pictures, and then that's quite an achievement to get that done. And for the price, I was quite impressed. However, up close and personal, I can see that those screws don't align at all, but I don't think they're false either. I think they are actually functional. I've not tested them because this watch isn't mine. But I kind of like the fact that they don't align, because if they're real, then I wouldn't want them to, because I say you're going to have to be paying a lot of money for somebody to get that done. The rehaunt there sort of just sits fraction above the guilloche there and just frames it quite nicely. It does disappear a little bit into the shadows, but yeah, still clear enough to see what you need to see. Obviously, you've got the Cyclops over the date there. Personally, I don't like them because I think they're just a little bit of a Rolex hangover, but many people still use them, and I can respect that. There is a lume as well on the hour hands, so hour hand, minute hand, and obviously the hour markers. It's quite decent for the first few minutes, excuse me, but don't expect it to last till 5 a.m. in the morning. These currently retail, I think there's around £220, but as always, if you're interested, head over to First Class Watches, tell them that you've seen the watch on the Time Bomb channel, and I'm sure they're going to do their best on price matching. Rotary doing here, I think, what they've been doing for a very long time, which is making a value package, good looking watches for normal people, and I sincerely applaud them for that. Others will look at this and say, yeah, it's a bit too cloney, which, yeah, is slightly true, but I doubt this watch is aimed at them as potential buyers. Hopefully, Rotary can sell a whole bunch of these over Christmas and pay off some of those debts and keep offering us value designs into the new year and beyond. As always, those are just my thoughts, guys, and would very much welcome yours, and look forward to reading them in the comments. Thanks as always for your time and for your view, and we'll catch you all in the next one. Cheers.